Esther Githu Yuwat. It's Thursday, March 23rd. This is Africa 54. Gay rights supporters denounce Ugandan lawmakers for voting to criminalize anyone who publicly identifies as homosexual. Will have in-depth coverage and reactions. 4 years of continuous flooding turns parts of South Sudan into swampland. All that and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. We begin in Uganda, where gay rights supporters are denouncing Ugandan lawmakers for voting to criminalize anyone who publicly identifies as a sexual minority or engages in homosexual acts. The Anti-Homosexuality Act, which Uganda's parliament passed late Tuesday with only 2 dissenting votes, will become law if President Yoweri Museveni signs it as expected.
The last time the legislation was around, there were cases of suicide. So this time, this law is worse than the one that was here before because it has a death penalty. And many people will be worried. Many people would be scared. Some LGBTQ persons are not scared of the law as much as they are scared of their families, their friends, the media outing them and finding out who they are. But many of them will be scared of going to prison. And the majority of our Ugandan LGBTQ persons, they have not even understood the definition of this law and what it means.
Homosexual activity in Uganda is already punishable with life imprisonment under a colonial-era law targeting carnal knowledge against the order of nature. In a recent speech, President Museveni suggested that he supports the bill, accusing unnamed Western nations of trying to impose their practices on other people. For more reaction on Uganda's anti-gay legislation, reporter Mugume Rwakaringi spoke to people on the streets of Kampala.
I'm not in support of the law which was passed yesterday. I think everybody has the right to live a life he or she wants. You are not a God to decide about someone's life or to pass a law to kill someone. They have the right to live. And you are not God. You can't judge. You can't come up and judge someone to get killed or to get isolated or to spend all his or her life in prison. This was there before we were born. Even our grandfathers were. It was there before they were born.
It has some issues that I feel like are very difficult because I worry that the punishment are too severe. And one person asked a very interesting question. How do you police gay? It's very difficult to do that. Are you going to be walking around and saying you are gay or you are gay? Are you going to be going in people's rooms and checking out what's happening inside there? How are you going to do that?
The parliament had done something good to pass this law so that whenever it's caught doing that, okay, like homosexuality thing, is punished so that they fear to practice that.
Why do I agree with the law? It's because when you look at the norms and the culture of our country and at the Uganda kingdom, it's of importance and of respect for a woman to get married to a man and a man to marry a woman. So I would go with the law, and it's an automatic yes, a yes, a yes, a yes for me.
The Parliament of Uganda is taking the right route where it's supposed to be. Most times they have been discussing things that don't benefit Ugandans, but this time around, we are seeing members of Parliament standing up for the heritage, for the culture of Ugandans and the culture of Africa at large.
If the West wants to practice their homosexuality, let them do it in their own countries, but let them not impose it on African countries and Uganda in particular.
It is true that if anybody in Uganda encourages this practice or is involved in this behavior, is found, harsh laws should be actually administered, because this is intended to scare anybody, whoever wants to do it, should actually
White House spokesperson Karine Jean-Pierre says Uganda's anti-gay legislation is concerning and represents one of the most extreme actions taken against the LGBTQ community in the world. She also says that if the Anti-Homosexuality Act is enacted, it will threaten Uganda's fight against HIV/AIDS, deter tourism and investment in Uganda.
We have grave concerns with the passage of the Anti-Homosexuality Act, AHA, by the Parliament of Uganda yesterday, and increasing violence targeting LGBTQI+ persons. If the AHA is signed into law and enacted, it would impinge upon universal human rights, jeopardize progress in the fight against HIV/AIDS, deter tourism and invest in Uganda, and damage Uganda's international reputation. The bill is one of the most extreme anti-LGBTQI+ laws in the world. Human rights are universal. No one should be attacked, imprisoned, or killed simply because of who they are or whom they love.
White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby says no decision has been made on possible economic repercussions from the U.S. on the bill.
This is the Parliament passing it. It still has some process to go here. We're certainly watching this real closely, and we would have to take a look at whether or not there might be repercussions that we would have to take, perhaps in an economic way, should this law actually get passed and enacted. That would be really unfortunate because so much of the economic assistance that we provide Uganda is health assistance, and largely through PEPFAR. You can see a world in which a law like this, should it be enacted, would not only, as Karine rightly said, just be devastating to a whole community of people inside Uganda, but if it were to have any kind of an effect on our economic assistance, that would only make that worse. So we'll have to take a look. No decisions.
For more discussion on this controversial story, I'm joined live via Skype by Victor Mukasa, a Uganda human rights defender for the LGBTQ+ community. Victor, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you, and thanks for having me.
Unfortunately, I can't see you, but we'll move on with the questions. What's your reaction now after seeing this bill passed by the lawmakers in Uganda?
Well, my reaction is both as an LGBTI person who feels criminalized and also as a Ugandan who is concerned about the future of our nation. Seeing the MPs rejoice 2 days ago as they passed the bill, the only thing I could hear in my inner ear was crucify them, kill them, do away with them. And I felt that they are having an attempt to erase citizens of the country that identify as LGBTQ individuals. It's very saddening because it was basically an open abuse of the Constitution of Uganda and human rights, international human rights standards that call for life, the right to life, the right to liberty, the life from to protection from discrimination, the right to dignity. All this is being stripped of us as Ugandan LGBTQ citizens, and it is very disheartening and very worrying.
I assume that you've already spoken to the LGBTQ+ community in Uganda. What is their biggest concern?
Right now, the biggest fear, the situation right now is a huge cloud of fear hovering over everybody. People are speaking to us while whispering in their houses in case neighbors hear them speaking on the phone about how they are feeling. People are afraid that they are going to die. We have already had cases of arrests in Kampala alone. We don't know what is happening in the other districts. And we just know that a lot of people, this has happened in the past, and it is just at a larger scale this time. Even if the law has not yet passed, signed by the president into law, it is very clear that the community, fellow Ugandans, are already taking things in their hands.
Victor, very briefly, do you think this is a cultural issue as stated by several African countries, or do you think in Uganda it's politicized?
hugely, it is politicized, although culture plays a big role in this. For this particular time, especially starting 2009, we see this as a political issue. We see this as the government, the dictator Museveni, using homosexuality or homosexuals as a scapegoat to blindfold Ugandans who are awakening right now and are beginning to ask for accountability for all the ills and the filth by his government. It is a way of blindfolding them, look away from all those ills and concentrate on this one issue, which he has known that according to culture, which is in quotes, Ugandans will rally behind that. And that is what he has done now. Now, the unfortunate thing is that while they are selfishly using this law to move their horrible agenda ahead, they are hurting us as Ugandan citizens, LGBT people.
Right. Victor, thank you very much. I'll try to make sure that we get a lawmaker from Uganda to react to that. Victor Mukasa is a Ugandan human rights defender for the LGBTQ+ community. Ethiopia's Office of the Prime Minister says an interim administration for the Horn of Africa country's northern region of Tigray has been established. That's a key step in implementation of a peace plan to end the fighting. The interim administration was set up by the upper chamber of Ethiopia's parliament, with Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed appointing Getachew Reda as the head of the interim administration. The government's war with the Tigray People's Liberation Front ended with a truce signed in South Africa last November. Over the last 4 years, unprecedented flooding linked to climate change has turned almost 2/3 of South Sudan into swampland. The environmental catastrophe is most apparent in the city of Bentiu in the northern part of the country. We get more in this report from the Agence France Presse News Service.
It's barely rained in months. Floods keep coming. People in Bentiu are literally trapped, protected only by earthen dikes. This crisis is part of a wider disaster facing South Sudan, the world's youngest nation and one of the most vulnerable to climate change.
We feel like we're being made to suffer throughout, because after a fierce civil war, here come the raging floods. How can we comprehend all these? We're here as people who are just in some impoverished island because we have nowhere to go.
Floods have covered an area larger than Denmark since 2019, impacting 1 million residents. Herds of livestock have died, and 10% of the country's arable land is now a swamp. The floods came after record rainfall over the Great Lakes in upstream countries, pushing large volumes of water over the plains downstream. Vast tracts of land have become so saturated that the additional water has nowhere to go. South Sudan is prone to seasonal flooding, but nothing like this has ever been seen.
There's no record of Bentiu being flooded like it has been for the last 2.5 or 3 years. So this is something that is unique, the interaction between the different systems.
The flooding has cut off vital roadways out of Bentiu that were used to bring in most of the city's food. Supplies are now being ferried in by canoes. Farmers and herders have also been affected. They've had to drastically change their lifestyle and are finding it hard to make a living.
If the flooding is over, we can resume our farming practices. At the moment, we only survive on activities like fishing and water lily collection.
The war in Ukraine has cut aid budgets and raised food prices at a time when 7.7 million people in South Sudan don't have enough to eat. As a result, the World Food Programme has been forced to cut its rations in half, even in hard-hit areas like Bentiu. Families that use up their monthly allocation are forced to survive on wildflowers or fruit. If not, they go hungry.
When children wake up in the morning, they start crying, looking for something to eat. But there's no food.
Experts warned the water in some areas may not recede for years or even decades. In January 2023, satellite imagery showed the area absorbed by floods expanded 3,000 square kilometers within a single week.
That report was filed by the French news agency AFP. Now, with Ramadan underway, nearly 200 migrants are returning home to Niger from Libya. They will spend the Muslim month with their families, some for the first time in several years. Their organized trip from Libya is part of the International Organization for Migration's voluntary deportation program. The migrants who have been in Libya for years since trying to cross to Europe but could not stayed in Misrata to work and send money to their families back home. The migrants are very excited to return to Niger to be with their families.
I've spent Ramadan in Libya for 5 years. Now I'm traveling to Niger to spend Ramadan there and see my children, my mother, and my family, God willing. I have 2 children, a child named Haruna and one named Suleiman, and I'm now going to Niger. I hope to find my family well. God bless you.
I've been in Libya for 4 years. I work in shops or go to a gas station. When I work, I get money and I send the money to my wife in Niger to buy food for her and my children. And now, thank God, I'm happy that God has sent me a plane to take me back so I can spend Ramadan there. I'm very, very happy.
I'm happy. I've not been able to go to Niger for 5 years. Now I'm going to Niger and will see my wife, my children, mother and father, and they will all welcome me.
Since 2017, the International Organization for Migration has accelerated the voluntary returns program from a number of countries, with Niger organizing bilateral returns. And joining me in the studio is Mohamed Olad, a VOA senior Somali editor. Mohamed, tell us more about the significance of Ramadan, especially in Somalia now and the Horn of Africa region.
Well, in Somalia, the Ramadan is a very important month for the people to celebrate and commemorate the revelation of the Quran. Is one of the sacred books of Islam. And also it's very important for people there to show their sincere feelings and spiritual growth to the people they live with in the region and in Somalia particularly.
We've talked about the drought in the region lately. What's different in this year's Ramadan in Somalia?
Well, this year it comes a time Somalia has been suffering from drought. 43,000 people were killed, according to the Somali government, died during the drought. And it comes also a time inflation is very high because of the Ukraine war. And also it comes a time Somali government is fighting against Al-Shabaab in South and Central Somalia, where thousands of people are on the move or either in the IDP camps. So it's a difficult time. It's a hard time for Somalis living in Somalia to welcome this month of Ramadan.
And briefly, you talk about the hardships right now. Traditionally, wealthier people help the poor people to be able to celebrate. Who can they turn to this year with the high inflation?
Well, always Somalis in the Ramadan, and Muslims in general, they open their pockets to the people who are in need. And it's one of the tenets of Islam that people pay to the poor people in this month, so that they depend on the people living in the diaspora. For example, the Somalis send millions of dollars back to home every year. So this time of around year, they double the amount of money they pay to their people and the amount of money they help to their relatives. And they extend their hand beyond their families and relatives, and they give assistance to the Somalis and people in need, IDPs. If you go to the Hawala centers where they send money back home, there are lines in everywhere in America, in Europe. You can see lines of Somalis just sending money back to home. So it shows that these people depend on Somalis when there is a need, whether it is drought, whether it is Ramadan, whether it is hardship.
Right. Yeah. Right. Mohamed, thank you so much for your insight into this.
Thank you.
Mohamed Olad is a VOA senior Somali editor. And we're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54 and the stories that we cover on our VOA Africa programs. Visit our website at voaafrica.com. Still to come, the unique story of Wainwright's journey to the NBA. We'll be right back.
Every year, United States honors women of influence around the world who courageously advocated for rights of citizens and showed leadership, often in face of government oppression or threat. These are women who are making substantial difference promoting peaceful and inclusive societies while supporting efforts to ensure human rights, justice, and gender equity. On this week's episode of Our Voices, we will look at this year's recipients of the International Women of Courage Award and explore how their courage and commitment contributed to create a better society. Join the conversation each week right here on Our Voices.
In other news, the World Health Organization says 8 new confirmed cases of Marburg disease is being reported in Equatorial Guinea. Of the 8 new cases, 2 are from Kitam province, 4 from Litaro province, and 2 others from Central province. A London jury has found Nigeria's former Deputy Senate President Ike Ekweremadu guilty of plotting to harvest a street trader's kidney for his 21-year-old sick daughter. Ekweremadu's daughter Sonia remains on dialysis with a renal condition. And 26 supporters of former Ivory Coast President Laurent Gbagbo, who received 2-year jail terms on March 9th following an anti-government protest, have been given suspended sentences on appeal. The original 2-year sentences triggered criticism from Amnesty International. U.S. lawmakers are grilling TikTok CEO Xu Zichu on Capitol Hill Thursday. They are asking about the app's connections to China. Dina Mitchell has more background on the hearing.
TikTok CEO Xu Zichu is expected to face questions from U.S. lawmakers about the Chinese-owned app's privacy and data security practices, child safety policies, and ties to the Chinese Communist Party. At an earlier hearing on security threats, Senator Marco Rubio asked FBI Director Christopher Wray about TikTok's parent company, ByteDance, which is headquartered in Beijing.
Could the Chinese government, through its ownership of ByteDance, that owns ByteDance US, if they wanted to, and ByteDance US were willing to cooperate or forced to cooperate, could they use TikTok to control data on millions of users?
Yes.
Could they use it to control the software on millions of devices, given the opportunity to do so?
Yes.
So they can collect our data, manipulate information, poison the minds, and feed garbage into the minds of millions of people, and so forth. This is a substantial national security threat for the country of a kind that we didn't face in the past.
TikTok executives like public policy communications head Brooke Oberwetter say they are addressing U.S. security concerns.
First and foremost, the Chinese government has never asked TikTok for U.S. user data. We have never provided them U.S. user data, nor would we if they asked us to. All of our data is now routed through the Oracle Cloud infrastructure, where it's kept in a secure environment that is managed by our U.S. data security team.
Heritage Foundation researcher Jake Denton says having TikTok on your phone is like carrying around a personal surveillance balloon.
This application is a wolf in sheep's clothing. The app is uniquely capable of surveilling and collecting mass amounts of data. There's also a great deal of Chinese propaganda. There's a great deal of data collection, and it just creates a massive vulnerability for ordinary Americans and our government.
In December, TikTok was banned on federally owned devices. Some states, including Texas and Mississippi, have also moved to restrict the app. But researcher James Lewis says a complete ban is unlikely.
Unfortunately, for the people who want to ban TikTok, the Constitution doesn't allow them to do that. Texas has the authority to say you can't use it on a state-owned device, you can't use it at work on a state network, but you can't tell people what to do in their private lives.
Congress is considering bipartisan legislation that would give President Joe Biden power to ban any foreign-based technology that poses a national security threat. Dina Mitchell for VOA News.
Nothing has stopped Ish Wainright from pursuing his dream in the NBA. VOA's Betty Ayub and Sahar Muhammadi traveled to Phoenix to hear more about Ish's inspiring journey.
I played basketball my whole life. It took a lot of hard work and dedication. It's a dream I always wanted to do, something I always wanted to do as a little kid, and I knew that I was going to make it to the NBA. I didn't know when, but I knew that I was going to make it to the NBA. That was my goal, and I put my head down and I went for it. You look back at my journey, it's just a blessing. Go from Pro A to Germany, and you just make those jumps, make those steps, and now I'm in the NBA. You know, my second year with the Suns, you turn around and seeing and being able to be on the same team as certain guys and pick their brains and try to know everything there is about basketball. I had got a call from my agent. They said that Uganda wanted to adopt me as a national player, so I didn't know anything about Africa. So I'm like, okay, sure. So I went in that situation open-minded, open-hearted, and it was probably the best experience I've ever had playing basketball.
Wainright trying to go past Coronel, trying to shake him with the crossover. Double team. Is he going to hit the three? You are!
Going over to Africa, playing with a group of guys that it's not just basketball for them. You know, they don't take it for granted. You know, some guys play for the name on the back, but no, they play for the name across their chest. And it's not just them. It's for the country.
Back to Wainright. What can he do this time?
The passion at every bucket, every shot, every layup, every dribble, you felt the passion. So that's something that is unmatched. That's family. That's my home now. I have a passport, so why not? I'm going to use it. I want to host camps. There's so much that I want to do for helping me. Uganda, that's a chapter in my book that helped me get to this spot. So today me and Biz Magbiamba went to the Children's Hospital. We met with a lot of kids. Their spirit and their spirit was just, we could feel it. It was a young lady that had just a smile that literally brightened up the whole entire floor. We walked in and no matter what she was going through, she was still able to smile. Whatever we can do to help someone out, any type of way, and make a kid's day, that's something that I love doing. I never really hear my mom call me Ish. My dad never called me Ish. So if you ever hear a lady screaming in the stands, get on mailman, that's my mom. Just letting you know.
Way to go. See you tomorrow.